Fedora.
Hello everyone, my name is Colin Ridgway, and I did this really cool thing where I watched all 36 Godzilla movies in the span of 2 months. My mental health has declined rapidly. I think Godzilla is a series that we all know and love. Started in 1954, kept on going, and there's multiple series, and there's different TV shows, and all these sort of stuff in different forms of media. Like you have the movies, but I already said shows, but you also there's manga, there's video games, there's all sorts of things. Godzilla is a franchise, and it's been one for the past 70 years. Now, of course, I've known of Godzilla for pretty much my entire life. I've heard of the character for the longest time, and I remember back when I was 13 years old, I got curious, was like, you know what, I want to watch the original Godzilla movie, so I started watching it. And then I got bored because back then I didn't appreciate many movies, at least older films at that time, the way I do now, where I have more patience. Back then I kind of wanted more straight to the point sort of films, but now I just decided, you know what, and I watched reviews about all the movies like years ago, so I had an idea of how each of them went and what they were about, but I wanted to watch them for myself. And I want to do this for the longest time, and then finally, last summer I was like, yeah, why not? I'll get to it. I mean, how complicated can it be? And I watched all of them, all 36, and by all 36 I mean the entire Showa era, I mean the Heisei era, Millennium era, Monsterverse, besides Kong Skull Island, the Godzilla movies, you know, and the anime trilogy, which I was debating on including. I wasn't sure if I should include it, but I decided at the last minute, why not? I'll add it in, and I watched it. And I was also considering early on to include all of the Toho giant monster movies, so like have the original Mothra, the Rebirth of Mothra movies, Rodan, that sort of stuff, but I'll watch those in my own time. I don't need to see them now. Also King Kong Escapes, that was another one, but once again, I'll watch all those in my own time. I wanted to stick to just Godzilla for the sake of this video. As well as just my own curiosity and entertainment. And well, I guess to first describe things off to people that aren't as familiar with Godzilla, I will describe the current series that have been released in terms of the films. The first Godzilla series is the Showa series, or Showa era, which started with the original in 1954 and ended with Terror of Mechagodzilla in 1975, consisting of 15 movies in total. And this is probably the most famous era of Godzilla, because this has the famous cheap man in rubber suit sort of thing. It has the dopey Godzilla designs. It's a very, very cheesy sort of series. Although it also has the original, which is a very dark and gloomy film that's an entirely own thing. And it's also the only series where Godzilla is considered a hero. For a lot of it. It's a very weird series, but it was the first one and it's one of the most iconic. Next is the Heisei series from the 90s, or at least it started in 1984, had a film in 89, but the rest of the movies were in the 90s, so really it's kind of just the 90s Godzilla. At least that's how I think of it. And personally, this is my favorite era. This consisted of 7 films, starting with The Return of Godzilla, which has a ton of different names, but I'll talk about the names as well. And it ended with Godzilla vs. Ghidorah in 1995. After that, there would be a standalone American film, The American Godzilla, from 1998. That was done by Roland Emmerich, the same guy who did Independence Day. And it's not that bad of a movie. I mean, I'll talk about it, but still, it stands its own thing. But for a lot of Godzilla fans, it wasn't Godzilla. And so this made Toho say, yeah, let's make Godzilla movies again. And the year after, 1999, starts the Millennium era with Godzilla 2000 and ending in 2004 with Godzilla Final Wars, this series consisting of 6 movies in total. Now currently, I forget the name of the period we're in, but it's a weird era because it's not just Japanese like Godzilla movies going on. It's the Monsterverse and then weird Japanese Godzilla movies. So currently we have the Legendary Pictures Godzilla movies, all three of them. And we also have Shin Godzilla and the upcoming Godzilla -1, which as I record this is not out yet, but I'm anticipating its release. So, you know, and of course this era is also known to have the anime trilogy in it. So we have that going for it. And I think with all that, I want to get to the naming conventions, because the name of these movies are very inconsistent and weird. For example, the original Godzilla, in its native country of Japan, originally known as Gojira, and then in its 1956 American version, it was titled Godzilla King of the Monsters. And that's just the first movie's example. Other movies get way, way crazier, and like the original Japanese title is sometimes run out of favor by the international title in some movies, and it's weird. And like, let me give you an example. The second Godzilla movie ever made, which most people know as Godzilla Raids Again, but its original Japanese title, it was called, well, it could be translated as Godzilla's Counterattack or Counterattack of Godzilla. And its original American version, it was called Gigantus the Fire Monster. Yeah, I'm confused as well. But yeah, there's also other titles. One of my favorites is the original Mothra versus Godzilla in 1964 was called Godzilla versus the Thing, and later home releases would call it Godzilla versus Mothra. And I'm talking about here in the West, it was originally called Godzilla versus the Thing. Not to be confused with This the Thing or This the Thing, and especially not This the Thing. So I don't know if that's how they did it. And it's funny that it was called Godzilla versus Mothra on most home releases back in the 70s and 80s, because in 1992, Toho made a film called Godzilla versus Mothra. I think that's the most confusing thing. One of my favorites is the Mechagodzilla movies. Now, there are a few Mechagodzilla movies. And what's funny is that, like, you have Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, Terror of Mechagodzilla, and Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, which all sound like they could be the alternative names of like the same movie. What's funny is that the first two I just mentioned have their own different titles. One, Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, sometimes was originally called Godzilla versus the Cosmic Monster, then changed to the Bionic Monster, or no other way around, Bionic Monster, then Cosmic Monster, my bad. And Terror of Mechagodzilla was originally titled The Terror of Godzilla. So yeah, that's weird. In its original Japanese title, it was called Counterattack of Mechagodzilla, or Mechagodzilla's Counterattack, however you want to translate that. And what's funny is that there's a movie called Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2, which is the third Mechagodzilla movie. It's weird. And also there are just the movies that are just titled Godzilla. So you have the original, then you have the one from 1984, which originally was just called Godzilla, and then the American release was called Godzilla 1985, but the international title was just mainly referred to as The Return of Godzilla. Then you also have Godzilla 2000, which came out originally in 1999, so I guess Godzilla's a car now, or like Madden. And then you have Godzilla 2014, there's the one from 1998, forgot to mention that. And also the sequel to Godzilla 2014 was called Godzilla King of the Monsters, which was the name of the American version of the first Godzilla. Blows your mind. Okay, I'm sorry for the major explanations and just basically just nerding out over Godzilla knowledge. But I guess I'll get to the rankings, the part you're waiting for. So let's begin with that, shall we? At number 36, we have Godzilla King of the Monsters. Yeah, starting off prominently with one of the MonsterVerse movies. And spoiler alert, I'm not a fan of the MonsterVerse at all, and this is my least favorite because it's so fucking boring. Nothing happens in this movie. The coolest things that happened in this movie are the fights, and most people watch the Godzilla movies for just the fight scenes. They don't care about the human plot. But personally, I think the human plot matters because, hey, it's entangled with the, you know, the plot with the monsters, so that's how it should be, right? And they should be entertaining as well. The human characters just like suck. I don't care about them at all. I'm sorry if you're hearing trains and cars and things. That is just where I'm recording. But me. Right, I'm just gonna ignore that. But yeah, the people in this movie are boring, and they're just not entertaining. The human plot is not entertaining at all. And the monster fights are the best part of the movie, but the thing is, they're not even that good. Why, do you ask? Well, you see, Godzilla King of the Monsters does this really cool thing that they did in 2014, where it's at night, the monsters are fighting at night, and it's raining or snowing or whatever have you, and it's just not good. Like, why not have them fighting in the day where I can see the monsters? Because the CGI is good. Like, why can't I just see it clearly, like, every other Godzilla movie besides 2014? And the best thing, like the best scene in the entire film, is with Rodan in, I forget where it was in the movie, but like that one scene with Rodan was the best scene of the entire film, just because, wow, this is actually like a Godzilla movie that's like good. And I just hated this one. I didn't like this. But yeah, moving on. And you know what's funny? Number 35 to 33 is the entire anime trilogy, 35 being the first one and 33 being the third one. I think it gets better with each one, but I just found them so dull and boring, and the characters were not interesting. It got better because like there was a bit more monster action going on, and like the character plot got a teeny tiny bit interesting in each one, but still I just didn't care about these. I found them so boring, and I didn't like them, and I wish I didn't add them. I wish I just stuck with live action, but no, I decided, nah, I gotta add these because people will count them in their ranking video, so I might as well add them to mine. And it wasn't worth it because they're awful and I didn't like any of them, and they all go in the same sort of spot because, yeah, but King of the Monsters I found worse, but still, all three of these movies, I just hated these. Alright, at number 32, the movie you're probably expecting to be at the bottom, but we're surprised that it was King of the Monsters instead, is All Monsters Attack. And this movie is awful, it really is, but to give it the benefit of the doubt, the year was 1969 and Japan's film industry was in the shithole, so the fact they're working with a minimal budget and not only the constraints of Ishiro Honda and his team and everything, that they had to make this movie, yeah, I get it. And you know what? It does give a good message about the family unit, at least at that point in Japan, where the economic miracle had many parents working and, kids didn't really have their parents around. So it's a very different Godzilla movie, I'll say that. Not a great one, because I believe his name is Ichiro, the kid, was not kind of annoying. Well, to be fair, if you're watching the dubbed Godzilla's Revenge, that's what the American title is called, it's a lot worse.
Godzilla says that I should learn to fight my own battles,
And you know what's funny? It's one of the few Godzilla movies I own on DVD. I didn't buy this. One of my friends gave this to me. So shout out to Guy for giving me this piece of shit. But yeah, the movie is bad, but I'm putting it above like the anime trilogy and King of the Monsters just because at least like I can understand that it had heart, and it was a little bit more entertaining than those, so I'll also give it that. So yeah, All Monsters Attack, bad movie, but it's better than the others. At least the Japanese version. The dub Godzilla's Revenge, maybe that's at the bottom, but I mean, you can debate that all you want. All right, number 31, Godzilla 1998, which, again, I'll say this, not a horrible film. It's just okay. It's popcorn entertainment. Although I will say I did like the first half of the movie a lot better than the second half, because the second half just gets a lot less interesting. And it's not Godzilla, as everyone said for the past, how old is this movie? 25 years? yeah, it's just not a great movie. It's popcorn entertainment. It's the same thing as Independence Day. And, hey, made by Roland Emmerich, so it makes sense. But still, not a good film, and not really a Godzilla movie. But for what it is, I think it's better than, you know, All Monsters Attack, the animation, the ones I just said before this. But, you know, 1998, yeah, what didn't really care for it. And just above that is Godzilla 2014, and this in 1998 are very conflicting for me, because there's parts of 1998 where I'm like, ooh, this is done better in this movie, but 2014 is like, oh, this is done better in this. And the reason I put 2014 above 1998, if I'm being completely honest, like, not just because, oh, the monster is actually Godzilla, but also, holy shit, Bryan Cranston was amazing in that movie. Like, I was actually invested in this movie for, like, when Bryan Cranston was there. Once he was taken out, the movie became boring as shit. And the monster fights are... First off, they more focus on the other monsters, the Mutos, more than they focus on Godzilla, which I didn't like that's how they treated that. I wish Godzilla was the only monster in the film, kind of like how the original was, or like 84, the later released Shin Godzilla just after 2014, but... I just, there are certain things where they could have made a great film, but there's a lot of setbacks. Like, I wish Bryan Cranston was in the entire film. I wish that the monster fights weren't completely black, because there are some parts of the monster fights where it's just, you can barely like make out Godzilla and the Mutos just kind of fighting, and it doesn't look good in the slightest. It just doesn't. And yeah, but there's just some things with 2014 where there are parts where I really like it, where, like, you know, if they did the monster fights right, it would have been really good. And if Godzilla was more prominent in the film, and if they kept Bryan Cranston, I probably would put this way, way higher. Not like top 10, but still like significantly higher than it is right now at number 30. So yeah. All right, at number 29 we have Godzilla versus Megalon. And this movie is a very, like, if you could say what is the cheesiest Godzilla movie, you have two answers. King Kong versus Godzilla from 1962, and this film, because this film, holy hell, you have some of the cheapest, cheapest costumes ever with Megalon and how Godzilla looks in this movie. You have Jet Jaguar, which is Jet Jaguar. I don't think I need to explain that any further. The human plot is almost feels like a Power Rangers episode, if that makes any sense. It's a very, very weird sort of plot, and just it's a very cheesy movie. And if any of you look up Godzilla GIFs, you'll see the famous one of Godzilla getting on his tail and just fucking floating kind of in the air and kicks Megalon, and he does it twice in the movie. It's one of the cheesiest Godzilla movies ever made, and it was one of the most significant Godzilla movies ever released in the US, because it had a wide broadcast TV release in 1977, and just, you know, it's significant in the role of what Godzilla was, at least kind of in the US at least. It reimagined his image, but it's not a good movie. It's not. Because personally, I don't like Godzilla as a hero. I like him as a force of destruction. What he meant in the original movie, and you're going to be hearing me talk about the original 1954 movie a lot, but, you know, I'll talk more about that later on. But I don't like Godzilla as a hero, and in this movie, it kind of focuses more on Jet Jaguar than it does on Godzilla, and just, it's a very crazy, bizarre plot. And later on, Gigan gets summoned, who is a cool monster. Megalon's just kind of weird, but Gigan's cool. But it feels like a really weird, just kind of very, very Tokusatsu movie. It's just not great. I didn't really like this one at all. But for those who do love it, like, you know, go you. But just for me, this ain't the one. At number 28, we have Godzilla vs. Gigan. This is one of the weirdest Godzilla movies, honestly. Like, it's like there are a number of movies, especially in the Showa era, which have aliens, and this one has aliens that are building a theme park ride, And it has, what's funny is that it has one of the longest like fight scenes in the entire series, but it's so boring. It's not a good fight scene, and I don't really care for the characters too much, at least just how they're presented. Like, I just found the film very boring, personally. I just didn't care for it. Like, it has the Godzilla actions and stuff, and I should mention, also the same with Megalon, but Gigan especially uses a lot of stock footage, and it's a very weird, just a weird movie in general, because of its place in the 70s, and just, like, even like the big fight with Godzilla, Gigan, Ghidorah, Anguirus, just all of them, you know, going against each other. It's just not a good movie. I just didn't like this one at all, personally, but god damn it, cars. But still, just this movie was, I just didn't think was a good one. At number 27, we have Godzilla versus Kong. And I know some people don't like this movie, this is their least favorite MonsterVerse movie. For me, this is my favorite because I found the monster fights, like, I feel like this is where Legendary Pictures found out where they could really do really good monster fights for Godzilla. This was really good. And I also really liked the human plot. The human plot actually, like, not one of the most interesting, but still, regarding the other human plots and how they, 2014 completely killed off Bryan Cranston, unfortunately, and King of the Monsters was just boring as hell. At least this, I actually had some minor interest in what the characters were doing. And also, you know, all the things with the monsters were cool. So, again, not great. I didn't like this movie that much, but still, it's an improvement from the other MonsterVerse movies, I will say that. And that's all I can really say, because, again, not a great movie, but not a good one. But, you know what? I will say it's my favorite MonsterVerse movie. I just don't like the MonsterVerse. At number 26, Godzilla vs. Ghidorah. Some of you are probably thinking, wow, this movie should have been way lower. I mean, Ghidorah, the spy monster? Get that movie out of here. That movie's weird, and it's trippy, and it's one of those other kids movies, and uses stock footage, and yada, yada, yada. Yes, it does do all that, but what I like most about this movie, like, besides Ghidorah is one of my favorite monsters, and super cool, but just the way they use it in this movie I didn't like. And it is trippy, of course. You can't really, you know, that's something I can't really defend, but still, I do think it represents, like, Godzilla seen as a force of destruction and is shown whenever there's some kind of disasters or, like, problem, like a red button issue, I think that's what it's called. And, like, you know, with the original, you have, like, the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and also the Lucky Dragon number 5 incident. And with Shin Godzilla, you have, you know, the earthquake and tsunami of 2011, and just those influences for those movies. And this movie has influences from pollution diseases across Japan, and just that it takes influence from that, and it does show Ghidorah as a force of destruction similar to that of Godzilla in both the original and Shin Godzilla that I just talked about. I think it fits sort of like that, but it's just not done well. So personally for me, that's kind of why I rank this higher than, like, Gigan and Megalon, just for that reason, although still not a good movie, but it attempts something that I can appreciate. It has a message, and you know what, it's a good one. I like it. Well, like the message, I don't like the movie. The movie's bad. Just putting it out there. But I think it's the like, least bad movie, because, like, after Ghidorah, this is where I get into the, yeah, these movies are just okay. Not bad, just okay. And what's the first one? Well, at number 25, we have Destroy All Monsters. And some of you are like, how could you put Destroy All Monsters this low on the list? Like, why is it here? And it's because the human plot isn't as interesting as it should be, and I think there could have been things that could have been done different. Like, I don't think you need the entire space plot. I think you could have had more like a Jurassic Park, but with, you know, Godzilla, Rodan, Anguirus, all those, like, monsters, and just, like, the monster ball at the end is really damn good. And some of the scenes we see of, like, all of them destroying cities and stuff, I do really like that. I think that's pretty cool. But I just feel like the human plot just drags on a bit too long. I just feel like there's too much human plot. I feel like there should be more monsters fighting, because that's what we're here. It's for, like, all the monsters to fight, but This movie doesn't really do that, and that's why I kind of rank it this low, because there's just too much human plot. That's just what I say. Next up is the first Godzilla movie with aliens and Godzilla going to space. Invasion of Astro Monster, which, to bring back the name thing, is the rare occasion where I actually like the American name more than the Japanese name, because the Japanese name Invasion of Astro Monster, that's what it's called, but the American title was Invasion of Monster Zero, Monster Zero, Godzilla versus Monster Zero. Godzilla versus Monster Zero is my favorite title of it, because they actually call Monster Zero King Ghidorah, like Monster Zero in the movie, and not Astro Monster. So that's why I like that title more, but I'll still stick to the Japanese title just because that's what it's universally called. You know, all that stuff. And this movie is just... Invasion of the Astro Monster is just one of those movies where it's like, it has a lot of good fights and stuff, and yeah, somewhat interesting human plot. I just feel like it's not done as well as other movies, like in the show era, compared to, like, you know, Ghidorah and Mothra vs. Godzilla and all that stuff from around that time. And just, you know, I just found it like a weird movie. And it was also the start of Godzilla becoming more kid-friendly, as you can probably tell because of the Godzilla dance that he does after beating King Ghidorah. To go back to another famous Godzilla scene, gif or whatever, I remember Hedorah at number 26. That's the one that had Godzilla like flying, and actually, funny enough, that model of Godzilla flying was the same one that was used in the pods in Invasion of Astro Monster. Very strange, but that's just how it is. But yeah, Invasion of Astro Monster, not a great entry in the Godzilla series. I just kind of found the alien stuff pretty boring, honestly, but yeah, that's just how I feel about the movie, but it's an okay one. At number 23, the first of the Millennium Era, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, which, if you just heard me say Millennium Era, like, well, it's definitely Mechagodzilla, and yeah, here it is, it's Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, and again, it's an okay movie, not a bad one, and the reason I put it like here and not like above with some of the other Millennium Era movies is because it's just, I don't know, it just isn't great. Like, some of the action is cool, like where Godzilla's fighting Mechagodzilla, but I just don't feel like there's enough Godzilla. It's more so focused on Mechagodzilla and the Force. It's not the G-Force, but I forget what they called it in this movie, because it changed. Because the thing with the Millennium Era is that each film is kind of its own sequel to the original Godzilla, and it doesn't keep continuity. And it's, I mean, besides the Kiryu saga, but we'll get to what that is. Yeah, Millennium Era is weird, but I just felt like this movie wasn't as great as it could have been. And some elements of it would definitely be used in Godzilla against Mechagodzilla later in the Millennium Era. But for what this movie has, it's okay. So, like, some of the stuff with Mechagodzilla is kind of cool, but not as cool as it could have been. And I just found the main chick, I forget her name, I just felt she was too serious for the movie, if that makes any sense. I just didn't, like, she should have, like, you know, taken a chill pill, personally. But, you know, that's just me saying that. But the movie is, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla is just, it's an okay. It's just okay. Next up, another Millennium movie, Godzilla Tokyo SOS. This is the second part of the Kiryu saga, which is a sequel to Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, which we'll get to later in the list. And this one, the reason I put this close to Mechagodzilla is because, well, it has like some really cool connections to the original Mothra film, and it has, you know, it's a sequel to Mechagodzilla, and you have Godzilla, Mechagodzilla, and Mothra fighting each other. I just didn't care for the human plot, because they had a good human plot against Mechagodzilla, and they just didn't continue with that in Tokyo SOS, which I found really strange. Like, why not continue this? They show the characters from that and be like, they're going somewhere else now. And it's like, what the fuck? Like, what the hell? You had such like a good thing with these characters, and now you're just letting them go. And you bring in new characters, which the new characters are fine, but I just didn't like this one as much. That's basically what I'm getting at. It has good monster fights and stuff, but just the human plot really like upset me. But just, yeah, Tokyo SOS is an okay film. I just wish it could have been better, you know? Next up, going back to the show era, is Ebirah, Horror of the Deep. And this one is, a lot of people don't care for this one. mainly because Godzilla comes in way late into the film. And Godzilla, the fight scene is really good with Godzilla and the lobster monster Ebirah, where they fight each other. That's a really solid fight. But most people complain that the human plot goes on for way too long in the beginning. But personally, I can forgive that because I actually find the human plot very intriguing to me. I actually enjoy the adventure element of it all and the government island thing, and just it's a very cool film. At least to me, I enjoy the human plot, and the Godzilla stuff is great as ever. But yeah, I think a lot of people give this movie too much hate. It's still not a great Godzilla movie, but an okay one. That's one I can appreciate. So yeah, I did enjoy this one a bit. Next up is Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, the first Godzilla movie on this list from the Heisei era, my personal favorite era. And yeah, this one is usually similar to Mechagodzilla. So a lot of people that love the Heisei era agree that yeah, this is the weakest one. But it really just has, for me personally, has to do with the human plot not being as interesting as the other Heisei movies. Just a bunch of people just kind of on an island investigating Godzilla, and this little Godzilla, I think is what he's called in this movie. And although little Godzilla gets captured by the main baddie, Space Godzilla, and Space Godzilla is a cool monster. I really love his design a lot. Very interesting character, but just and the fight scenes is one of the reasons that it's this high up. It's higher than say Mechagodzilla, because I love the fight scene in the crystallized city, and also they bring back Mothra from the 1957 movie The Mysterians. Why? I don't know, but they just felt like it that day, I guess. So they have Godzilla, Mothra, and Space Godzilla fighting. But Space Godzilla is a silly name, I know. They had an initial name called Astro Godzilla. I wish they stuck with that one, but names change and all that stuff. But hey, it's a very cool, a lot of good action in that movie, but just not a great human plot for me. That's just how I feel about Space Godzilla. That's what I think, and really, it's one you can skip. Oh, also, I don't like Little Godzilla's design. It looks out of place. That's how I feel about that. Okay, at number 19, we have the first movie from the Millennium era, Godzilla 2000. And this was a very, after 98, this was a very cool return to form. I haven't been talking about the suit designs in any of these movies a lot, but I really love the way Godzilla looks in this movie. His design, it's a very reptilian look, but it's one I can really get behind. I actually really like it quite a bit. The purple dorsal fins, I like those a lot. And just the fight with Orga, so the human plot and all these little things. It's a very cool movie. I really like it a lot. There's things that there are other movies do better than this, but this one is a solid one. And I think this personally for me, this breaks the mode of being okay to actually, oh, this is good. This is a good Godzilla movie. At least that's what I think. This is a good one. And to start the Millennium era, I think it was a solid first start for me. A lot of good action. The way that Godzilla kills the monster Orga in this movie is really cool. How he literally just gets bored and then just blows it up, which is, I guess, kind of cool, I guess. But yeah, I also like the human plot. I already said that, but just Orga as a monster was also really interesting. One of the most interesting monsters, personally. It was in a spaceship and a rock for millions of years, and then it forms kind of out of Godzilla's DNA. It's weird, but it's a weird movie. It's a cool movie, and I love it. Right, at number 18, we have Terror of Mechagodzilla. This was the final Godzilla movie released in the Showa era. And the reason this isn't my favorite Mechagodzilla movie, this isn't one of my favorites. I know a lot of people really like this movie, but personally, I just didn't find it as interesting. There's some stuff in the human plot that I don't like the inclusion of the aliens, which the aliens were also part of Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, but I just don't like that they're back here again. I don't know, there's just parts of this movie that I think are great, but also not as good as, the other movies that come after this or before that. They're basically higher up in this list is what I'm saying. But yeah, it has solid fight scenes. the Dr. Mifune. I think this is the one with Dr. Mifune. Basically, the doctor that has the daughter that gets controlled by the aliens. That's what I mean. But yeah, it's a really cool film, and I think it was a solid way to end off the Showa era. It's a solid film, and I think it has aspects of the original Godzilla, creating a monster kind of, and then having to destroy it. Just there are certain elements that bring back an idea of the original that I just think is cool to see. But overall, not my favorite, but still I think a solid one. All right, at number 17, King Kong versus Godzilla, another one of the cheesy ones. And this one, I can get a little bit more behind. I like how the suits look like roadkill. This was the first Godzilla and King Kong movie to be filmed in color, or Toho scope as it was back then. And just it's a very kind of fun film. Like, you have elements of the original King Kong where they go to the island, they grab the big monkey, but it's all for like a television news broadcast, and it has some elements of comedy that I actually kind of like. It's cheesy as all hell, and I'm not a big fan of cheesy Godzilla, but this is a cheesy Godzilla that works a little bit better for me, especially compared to Megalon. And some of the fight scenes are ridiculous, like King Kong shoving the tree down Godzilla's throat. That was amusing. And you have the fight with the octopus, and the trivia behind the octopus that Eiji Tsuburaya, the special effects supervisor, director, whatever, he ate one, so he ate his special effects. Eat shit every other special effects director, because can you eat your own effects? I don't think so. But yeah, it's a fun movie, and it's one that I can kind of get behind, not completely. I do like it, and yeah, it has some elements of being funny, and it has the Godzilla action you want. So yeah, thumbs up for me. At number 16, another cheesy Godzilla movie, but this one is one that a lot of people don't like, that I, for some reason, love. I don't know why. I love this movie for its cheesiness. And it's Son of Godzilla. Again, a lot of people hate it, and I agree, Minya is ugly as hell. He looks like if a bunch of rocks came alive and wanted to die. But just, I don't know, it's just, I kind of enjoy the corny human plot where they're trying to test weather experiments and shit. And you have Godzilla and Minya just kind of fucking around, mainly Minya fucking around with Godzilla, and just Godzilla just trying to chill out, but you have his dumb son just hopping around and being a dumbass, and you have Kumonga as a cool spider monster that you have at the end of the movie. And the end of the movie is actually pretty cool because they finish off the weather experiment, then Kumonga and Godzilla are fighting, which is a surprisingly intense fight. And you have the really emotional scene of Godzilla holding Minya in this snow, and it's one of the most sentimental kind of Godzilla scenes ever, which is weird regarding there are very serious films in this series, and this cheesy one that personally I love watching this. It's a very fun movie for me, and I know I'm gonna get some flack for putting it above a bunch of movies like King Kong versus Godzilla, Terror Mechagodzilla, and Godzilla 2000, but that's just how I'm putting it. I just like this movie quite a bit. All right, number 15, Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, the Millennium Era one. And this one has elements of Mechagodzilla that were used much better in that film. You have a similar main chick character who I can feel I get more behind. I feel like she's not as serious, so there's something more to her character that I can get behind. And I also like the other characters, like the little girl and the little girl's dad. I like them as characters. They're fun, they're nice. And I also like the idea that Godzilla's bones are within Mechagodzilla. That's really cool. And just the fight scenes and stuff, it's very nice, it's very cool. And sometimes it doesn't make any goddamn sense, like the bones coming to life and shit. Technically it's the original Godzilla from 1954 coming back. It's technically his second appearance, so make of that of what you will. But just, yeah, it's an interesting movie. It's kind of cool, and yeah, it's a really cool Mechagodzilla movie. Not my favorite, but a good one. All right, this one might surprise some people because I've seen a lot of people rate this pretty high because of how crazy it is. But number 14, Godzilla Final Wars, and yeah, this has like nearly every Godzilla monster ever seen in every Godzilla movie up to that point. And you know, you have just all this action going on, even with the human plot. It's all action stuff and all fighting and stuff. You know, and of course, there's like Godzilla fighting 98 Godzilla, or just Zilla, and you know, he fights against like Kumonga and Mothra, and even Gigan, and of course Ghidorah. That was really cool, and just it's a lot of fighting, and it's really fun. And it's just cool to see like all these like dull monsters fighting against each other for like, you know, 90 minutes or however long it lasted. I forgot. It was just too fun. But just, yeah, it's a fun movie. And it's action packed. Not the best Godzilla movie, but a solid one. It's an alright one. I like it. Alright, at number 13, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2, the one from the Heisei series. This is a really solid one. I really like Mechagodzilla in this movie. And I also like how Rodan is in this movie. And there's a lot of good fighting stuff. And this is the movie to introduce like Godzilla Jr., Baby Godzilla, whatever he's called in this movie. He changes like names in every single movie that he's in, like in the Heisei series. So I think he's Baby Godzilla here, but just I like the human plot in this one a lot. That goes around like with Baby Godzilla, and the fight scenes with Mechagodzilla, Rodan, and Godzilla are just really solid, especially when they have to blow up the brain inside of his ass, which I wish I was making that up. That's a real plot point. You can watch the movie and check it out, because it's a really good one. It's a really good Godzilla movie and Mechagodzilla movie, and that's all I have to say. It's just a really good movie that I really liked. All right, number 12. Some may be surprised this one was this high, because I know a lot of people rank it pretty low. Godzilla Reigns Again. A lot of people describe this movie as a rush, but personally give it the benefit of a doubt of just barely coming out right after the original. And I feel like it shares a lot of blood with the original. It has a lot of heart to it. And I like how it's the first Godzilla movie that had him fighting another monster, in this case Anguirus, which one of my favorite monsters, but no one cares about him. But hey, I love Anguirus, he's cool. And just, you know, like the Godzilla fighting stuff, I really like a lot. And you know, I really like the human plot. There's a lot of like heart with the human plot and how they're like pilots and stuff. And also, hey, I like the sacrifice that one guy does on the iceberg scene, and also the final scene where they're like shooting down the ice to like cover up Godzilla. I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, Godzilla Reigns Again, like, I guess because it's mainly because it shares a lot of blood with the original, but just I did really like this one a lot personally. Not against it just barely reached top 10. It's at number 12 after all. But just it's a good movie, but not one of the best. Still good. Number 11, and this one might shock some people, because a lot of people say this is like the best movie of the Heisei era. And the Heisei era is my favorite, and I love this movie a lot. This is really damn good. And so yeah, number 11, Godzilla vs. Biollante. This is the second movie of the Heisei era, and it has a lot of really cool stuff. There's like cool human plot going on. It's the first to introduce like a major mainstay character in the Heisei era, Miki, I think her name was, who was a psychic girl, and she's seen throughout the entire rest of the Heisei era. And you have like Godzilla fighting this giant plant monster that's made of his own cells. In fact, you just have all this going on in like the final fight scene, and just the human plot as well just going on. It's a very cool, like, kind of reminds me a little bit of Little Shop of Horrors, because, you know, plant monster and everything, but still, it's just cool to see Godzilla fighting a giant plant. And hey, it has a lot of good effects, and it's a good fight. I like it a lot. It's a solid Heisei era movie for me. All right, we've reached the top 10. And at number 10, we have my favorite Mechagodzilla movie, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, the original. And one of the main reasons I like this movie a lot is because it has got Mechagodzilla as a villain in it. All the other like Mechagodzilla movies besides Terror, he's run by like the government that's trying to fight Godzilla. And this one does have the thing where Godzilla is a hero, but I do like it because like Mechagodzilla shows off all of his powers fighting like actual Godzilla. Then you throw King Caesar into the mix, and it's like that. I do like the alien plot like quite a bit actually in this. It's a very solid all-around Godzilla movie, especially after like this came out after Megalon. How the hell you went from that to this, I don't know, but like something happened, and Mechagodzilla was I think a very good return to form, like Mechagodzilla fighting. And also This is my favorite incarnation of Mechagodzilla because, like, once again, he's evil, but also he has like laser missiles and like missiles coming out his fingers and toes and shit. It's very cool. Like it a lot. And yeah, it's just a solid movie with a really cool fight scenes as well. At number 9, another solid Heisei era movie, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. This one is weird because you have like a time travel plot where you have like the Dorats, and it goes back to World War II where you see the Godzilla Series and like Godzilla fighting not just King Ghidorah but Mechagodzilla, and it's insane. And there's all like the human plot is kind of bizarre. Like they're trying to help them, but like they're not. It's very weird. And one of the characters is like the granddaughter or great granddaughter of like one of the main characters from their time. It's a very weird movie that took a lot of inspiration from a lot of mainstay like American movies from the 80s. And it kind of shows, but still, it's a very solid, very fun movie, and with a lot of good action. Very solid. Not my favorite of the Heisei era. We'll get to that soon enough, but just still a solid film regardless. All right, number 8 and number 7 are going to be weird because they both have the same monster, but I'll clear it up. At number 8, we have Godzilla vs. Mothra from 1992. This one I found really cool because I liked the human plot a lot because it reminded me a lot of Indiana Jones. How there's a scene straight out of Indiana Jones. You have like, of course, Godzilla fighting like not just like Mothra, but also Mothra's like larva form, and then you have Batra, the evil Mothra, and their entire fight throughout the city is very cool. It's a very cool movie with Mothra and Godzilla just, you know, beating the shit out of each other. And there's a heartwarming story about like this Indiana Jones kind of guy who has a family, and he's, you know, kind of ran away, but he's trying to come back. And I like the human plot a lot, and I like the monsters fighting a lot. It's very nice, very fun, and very action-packed. Solid movie. And if you want to get more confusing, at number 7 we have Mothra versus Godzilla. Not Godzilla versus Mothra. Mothra versus Godzilla from 1964. This one was the last major like Showa era movie that had Godzilla as a threat. I really love Godzilla's design in this with his like big eyebrows and shit. Very cool. And you have like, you know, like it's a very solid film with like Godzilla destroying all the buildings and stuff. A lot of good stuff with that. And you have Mothra in the film looking really good for 1964. And you also have a nice human plot where it has to deal with corporate greed and like controlling Mothra's egg. It's a very cool movie. I really like it. I also really like the action. And yeah, you'd think like wow, like a moth fighting Godzilla? That doesn't sound right. But hey, it turns out to be a competent fight. And also you see like how the military can't fucking take down Godzilla for shit. It's a solid Godzilla movie, and I think one of the best. And number 6, the movie that came out right after Mothra, Ghidorah, the Three-Headed Dragon. The first movie to feature probably Godzilla's main arch nemesis, King Ghidorah. And you have King Ghidorah fighting against not just Godzilla, but also Mothra, at least the larva form, and also Rodan. Rodan returns in this movie, and you have this like alien princess. The first time anything space-related was in any of the Godzilla movies, because Ghidorah is from an alien race in space, and he's come across destroying all of Tokyo. And the destruction you see from Ghidorah is really damn cool. And like the human plot is very interesting. There's assassins and shit going on, and all the monster fights with Godzilla, Rodan, Ghidorah, Mothra's larva, and like all the battling is such a cool like show. Like it's what I think of when I think of classic show era. It's just Godzilla, Rodan, Mothra, Ghidorah all fighting. That's what I think a show era is all about. And I think this film, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Dragon, really showcases that. So yeah, very nice show era movie. All right, we're at the top 5. This is the like best of the best, at least for me. So let's get into it. And some of you might be surprised when I'm putting on number 5 instead of having it higher up. Number 5, I have Shin Godzilla from 2016, and this is what many people consider like close to, if not the best Godzilla movie, especially if you're not a fan of like old black and white movies. This is probably what many people would say their favorite, the best Godzilla movie. But personally for me, like there's a lot of good stuff about it, but I just don't feel like, because I just feel like the destruction it shows is incredible. Especially, this is my favorite incarnation of Godzilla. He's bigger than ever before, and just the amount of destruction and radiation that he does in Tokyo, especially in that one scene where he does all the fire breath and the fire like lasers coming out of his fucking back and shit. Looks like Hiroshima happened again in Tokyo. It's amazing. But I just feel like they focus too much on the government. I know that's the point in the showing that they sit around more often than actually doing something. I know that's the point, and there's humor in that as well. But just, I feel like there should have been more focus, like Godzilla's Force of Destruction, show the people that suffer from that, the citizens that suffer from that. And we see like little glimpses of just like people running away from like, you know, like Godzilla, and also the evolution of Godzilla. Like again, this incarnation is one of my favorites, and just how it constantly evolves, and especially that ending shot where you see like, oh, Godzilla, people coming from the tail. Very, very cool. And also terrifying. And that's kind of the point of the movie. It's supposed to be terrifying because Godzilla is a weapon of mass destruction that humanity caused. And just, it's a very good film, but just because I just feel like there should have been more of seeing the people and not just showing the government. And I know that there's a point to showing off the government the entire time, but just for me, I just wish there was more scenes with other people, or maybe more Godzilla scenes. That's just what I think. All right, at number 4, we have my favorite Godzilla film of the Millennium Era. I'm going to do a word count because this is Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All-Out Attack. And this is a weird Godzilla movie because in this film, Godzilla isn't really like a physical creature, more so like a manifestation of the lost souls from World War II. If that makes any sense? It's weird, but just, it's a very spiritual kind of movie almost, because you have this evil force that is Godzilla, and then you have like Mothra, King Ghidorah, and Baragon for some reason. I mean, hey, Baragon's cool to see again after Baragon versus Frankenstein, or Frankenstein versus Baragon. I forgot what the movie's called. But just, yeah, it's cool to see Baragon fight against Godzilla. Like, I mean, Baragon gets his ass kicked, and also the behind-the-scenes footage is fucking adorable. Getting sidetracked. Has a lot of good action. I like the human plot a lot. It's a very, very interesting story and has a lot of cool characters. And it also shows destruction to the people. And one of my favorite scenes is when like Godzilla passes by a hospital where a woman's recovering from it, like a thing he did, and then he fucking kills her. He destroys the entire building she's in. I loved that a lot. It was so good. And you have like the final like scenes in the movie where Godzilla gets killed on the inside by the main character's dad. Thought that was really cool. And just all the stuff, all the fighting and everything and the human flight. It's a very solid film. Not my favorite, it's almost, but just so good. And I guess this brings us to the top 3 Godzilla movies. And number 3, which might surprise some people because I know people that rank this pretty low, at least lower than this, is The Return of Godzilla. And maybe it's because I was sick of the Showa era by like, pretty much once I got to All Monster Attack, I was like, all right, I'm ready to get to the Heisei era. And maybe I could have done that, got to the Showa era later, but I want to go in order. And by Terror Mechagodzilla, I was sick. So ready to get to the Return of Godzilla. And then I watched it and oh my god, it's back to form. Godzilla is evil again. Godzilla is destroying buildings and there's no other monsters, it's just him. And like it poses a threat to not just the Japanese government, but you also see a bit of like the Cold War tensions at the time with America and not Japan, America and Russia, or at least the USSR at the time. Sorry, and just like that sort of tension, which I really love the Cold War sort of stories and stuff. So that caught my eye and interest, and just all this destruction surrounding Godzilla, and then Godzilla like destroying Tokyo and everything. Is him being seen as a threat again. There's a lot of stuff taken from the original that I like. That it's not a remake, of course, but it almost acts as just like, you know, a redo to start this new Heisei era. It's a very cool series. I love it a lot. And as a sequel to the original Godzilla, which is what it is, it works. And I love it a hell of a lot. Although personally, I like to have a headcanon, my personal headcanon of how the Godzilla movies go, because there is no explanation of how this Godzilla where he came from. because you just kind of see him in front of a mountain shot at the beginning of the film, and you're just like, oh, I guess Godzilla's back, and that's kind of how they treat it. They don't explain it, but personally, what I like to think is that it actually goes not just Godzilla, then Godzilla, the Return of Godzilla, and then the rest of the Heisei era. I think Godzilla, then Godzilla Rights again, then the Return of Godzilla, because I like to think it's the same monster. Like, I mean, hey, you see a mountain, so it could have been that iceberg. I don't know, but I don't know, just me spouting out bullshit. But yeah, Return of Godzilla, third favorite, and just a solid Godzilla movie all around. It brings back a lot of stuff from the original that I really like. And speaking of the original, this next movie is very tied to the original. It is Godzilla vs. Ghidorah. And yes, not Destroyer, Ghidorah. That's just how it says, because it couldn't copyright Destroyer. I think that just makes it cooler. But yeah, like, there's a lot of stuff related to the Oxygen Destroyer, and you see Emiko from the original come back, of all people, and just like I really like how they wrap up the human plot regarding like everything that's going on with the government, and at this point in the Heisei era, and just Godzilla. I love how Godzilla looks in this. Godzilla's Heisei design, at least from like Biollante to this movie, is like my favorite Godzilla look. Is just the Godzilla Heisei look. Like again, from Biollante to now, my favorite. And the way this is burned Godzilla is what people call this incarnation, because he's swelling up with the radiation. He's going to have the biggest nuclear explosion ever seen, and just that threat is really cool. And also you get to see Ghidorah, who's one of the coolest monsters ever, who keeps growing and multiplying to become this giant like fucking monster that looks like fucking Satan. It's so goddamn cool. And just him fighting like Godzilla, and ultimately Ghidorah gets killed by the military, not Godzilla, but in the way they kill off Godzilla is so cool, and it's so emotional. And it's just an excellent way to end not just the movie, but just the Heisei era in general, which is my favorite era. And I just think that was an appropriate way to end it. But that is not where the Godzilla, list ends. That was number 2, Godzilla vs. Ghidorah. And from how much I talked about this one movie throughout the entire ranking video, it's about time I get to this movie. The original Godzilla from 1954. What can I really say that hasn't been said before? It's dramatic. You see all the human destruction, the worries of the government as well, and just the romantic plot between like all the characters. The actor Akira Takarada, I don't remember his character name, I'm sorry. And you have Dr. Serizawa and Emiko and all of them just making this beautiful plot, and like Dr. Serizawa having this weapon, the Oxygen Destroyer, that can destroy Godzilla, but he's afraid to unleash it on the world to reveal this powerful weapon. And it's a great movie about, it's not like, oh, nuclear war bad. I mean, kind of is, but it's a lot more than that. Godzilla represents a force of destruction, an unstoppable force of destruction that can kill millions. And just seeing the despair that all these like people go through, and like radiation poisoning and everything, it shows that nuclear war is terrifying. And also the fact of just nuclear weapons, just having them and just how they can be unleashed is just, it's scary. That's what it is. It's terrifying. And that's what Godzilla represents. He's a walking monster abomination of nuclear radiation. And so that's why I say the original Godzilla is the best one, because I'm the first to say that. But yeah, Godzilla, that's all the Godzilla movies. It was kind of fun watching all these, honestly, just because halfway through it I was like, man, some of these movies just, god damn. But it was like, I found an appreciation for Godzilla. And some movies I didn't like, I still found something to appreciate. It's like, wow, this is fun. I like this. And when I was done, when I finally watched Godzilla vs. Kong and finished it, I was like, wow, I watched 36 movies in the span of 2 months. Huh. And, it's cool to say that I've watched every Godzilla movie, and I'm very excited to see -1. Not so excited to see the new Monsterverse movie. But yeah, like, what are your favorite Godzilla movies? Like, you know, do you like the original? Have you never seen a Godzilla movie? And has this video enticed you to be like, hey, I should watch the Godzilla series? You don't have to watch all of them. I think I said the best. I mean, I showed you what the best ones are. So if you want to go off those, do that. Just Godzilla's a fun series. And if I were to, I just ranked the best ones, but if I were to recommend, like, kind of just recommend for the, I'm ranking these for the fans, just what I think are the best ones that I really liked, at least my favorites, personally. But if I were to recommend three to just the average person, I would recommend the original GMK, aka Godzilla, Mothra, Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All Out Attack, the one that sounds like 10,000 words long, and Shin Godzilla. I'd recommend those three movies. Of course, The Return of Godzilla is also a good one, but just those are the three that I think would work with modern audiences. At least the original is just, that's the best one, so of course I'd recommend it. But yeah, that's my Godzilla ranking video. Thank you for watching. If you want to put what your favorite Godzilla movies are in the comments, or maybe not, I don't know, I don't give a shit. I just kind of want to make this video just because I wanted to. It was fun to do this. So yeah, again, for the 5th time, thank everyone for watching. I'll see you in the next video I make, which is probably going to be in the year 2056, because I'm working on a feature film right now and it's really hard. Bye.